Hi everybody! Just recently I've started using this UV resin to coat my lures, and it seems to work very well. But apart from the UV resin itself, you also need a UV light source, and for that purpose I have bought this box for curing nails or UV color on nails, and it seems to work very well. To avoid having to hold the lures inside the box, I have made this little temporary box out of cardboard, and it has a rotator on it which is rotating the lures while the box is mounted on top. And this is all working very well, but well, I must say this cardboard box isn't very stable, so I want to make myself a new box. And for that purpose I'll be using some plywood, and some of the parts I've also used in my lure dryer movie, so some of those you will see again. I'll leave a link to the lure dryer movie up here in the text below that one. You'll find links to the parts I've used. Okay, so as this one works fairly well, I might need it a little longer to hold some of the long lures, but all in all the thing is working fairly good, so I'll be using a setup somewhat like this. Okay? Well, just hang in here and let's see how everything turns out. As I mentioned before, I want to make a box that is somewhat like this one. One thing is that I want it to be a little longer to be able to hold some more lures. I have a limit as the length of this won't allow me to make it very much longer, but at least a few centimeters. Also, I would like the end of it to be able to fit the arch here to prevent too much of the UV light to get out. Well, first of all, I need to cut out some wood. I need to have a strip which I can use for these sides, another one for this, and one for the bottom. And as I rather avoid getting too much dust here inside, I'll go outside to cut those. And as it's dark outside, well, I won't be able to record that. But anyway, I don't think it's very interesting. So that will be the first part. I'll be back when I have made all the major cuttings, and then we'll look at how we get on. I've now cut out all the wood I need for this project, and I will take some measurements and leave the measurements in the text down below in the movie, so you can make the same setup if you want to. Okay, the plan is to make it more or less like the other one. So I will have 3 sides here for the box itself. I will have a back pane for the rotator, and back here I'll put on a piece of wood to hold the motor in place. And all in all, this is more or less what I need. I might end up rounding the corners a bit here, but actually I don't think I need it, as when I put my dryer or my lamp here like this, well, it's actually very nicely enclosed with all the light and everything. And the idea is then to have the rotator running in here, the motor sitting out here. Okay, so now I'll need to make some holes in this one for the axis, and from the motor going here all the way through, and I will like to have a plate, not like this cardboard one, but one in wood, but one that I can exchange depending on what lure I'm actually going to dry in it. I have several different kinds, like this one, which is my line through sea trout lure. This one I will usually paint and coat with some pins in it, to which I can remove afterwards. I will and for those I've just used this cardboard, but I think I'll think of something else for those. Another lure I intend to use this on is my pencil line through lure. This one I will have some a dice here with some pins sitting in it, and the idea is to push the lure into that one while it's rotating. So that is the plan. So I need to have different discs to use with this. Okay, now I'll just sand everything down a bit to avoid getting splinters everywhere, and then I will figure out where to put the hole here and what size it should be. Now I've sanded off all the splinters of the wood here, so now I just need to drill the hole for the axis, and for that I can measure it out on the old one. The axis I'm going to use is an 8mm threaded rod, like this one, and that matched the connector I made from my other project, which connect the motor to the threaded rod. And I'll also be using 2 ball bearings with the ball bearing holders. It's the ball bearings that comes from the same as you have in rollerblades. Okay, but this rod is 8mm thick, so I just need a 10mm hole, and I just need it to be positioned in the same spot as that one. And well, as the board is 17 centimeters and this one has a center somewhat like 6 centimeters up, I'll just measure out that point here like that, and 8.5mm in like that. Before I assemble the box, I just want to cover the inside with aluminum foil. I want to do that before I assemble it because it's much easier than when it's assembled and I have to work on the inside. So I'll just figure out how much area I need to cover, and then I will apply it to all those surfaces which is going to be on the inside. Okay? So somewhere up here. Doesn't need to be 100% precise, but in the right neighborhood anyway, like that. And all these surfaces are also going to be covered. So this one, this one, this one, and this one. Okay? And the way to attach it is by using some of this spray mount, which I'm just going to spray on, and then I can apply the aluminum foil and then cut off the excess afterwards. Okay, so I'll just do that, and I'll start with the big piece here. I'll just make sure not to spray on the part I don't need foil on. Like that, and then grab a piece of foil here. I'll used to be a shiny side, so I'll just apply that up to the mark here. And it doesn't matter if it wrinkles a bit, because well, it's just to reflect as much light as possible, so you will have a more efficient hardening of the resin. Okay, and well, I'll just leave this for a second and then go on with the rest of them. Okay, and I'll just cut off the rest of it with a scissor. If you try to tear it, it often well, just tear the wrong way, or cracks or whatever. Don't know what to call it. Okay. So now all the surfaces are covered with the aluminum foil, and I can just start assemble the box. And to do that, I'll just use some small nails. I could glue it together, but I think for a first try it's nice to have the nails, because they are easier to remove if you need to do something over. And as this being a first time, well, you never know. So I'll just go ahead and get everything hammered together, okay? So now the box itself is assembled with the aluminum foil inside, and let's just see if it matches the box. It fits it nicely, so I think that is just perfect. So now we need to go on with the next part, and apart from the motor just being attached, we also need to make the disc. And well, I'll just arrange my little makeshift table saw over here, and then I'll cut it out, which is a jigsaw upside down, but you can see that just in a second. Okay? Well, I thought that now that I was cutting anyway, I might as well make the two discs I knew that I would be needing, so I made them both. Now I'm just going to sand over the edges and drill a hole in the center here. And as the axis will be 8mm, I know that I made a 10mm hole there, but on this one I'd like to have it perfectly centered, so I make 8mm holes in these ones. Okay. So now I'll just sand over the edges here. And it's not only for my comfort I take off all the splinters, but I would really not like to have any splinters in my baits while they are hardening. So it's a good idea to be careful to make sure that they are nice and smooth. Well, now I more or less have all the things I need to assemble the box, so I think I'll give it a shot. First I have the connector here, which has the threaded hole in one end, so I'll just apply the axis to that one. Then I have the holder with the ball bearing in it. I'll apply that one as well. I won't fix it with a bolt or a nut, because generally when you have things turning, you end up with weird effects when you have a threaded rod. So I'll just leave it there lying for the ball bearing to turn around. Then I'll put it through here, apply the other ball bearing here, and on this side I need a nut, because I want to be able to fixate the disc here like that, and apply the other one. And for the permanent fix I'll need two, and that should be something like that. On the other end I have the motor, and that should fit into this one like that. And just a little while back I noticed that actually I haven't left enough room for the motor to stand in a vertical position like I wanted to. So I need to have it maybe sitting on the side like this one, but that doesn't really matter. Another thing is that I made this holder for the motor on my 3D printer, and it has some minor faults, which means I need to print out a new one with a few minor modifications. But for show I can just show you this, how I intend to do it. So I will put that onto the motor of the thing here like that, and then I've considered just putting up the board that should hold the motor out here, which will also make it much easier for me to screw in the screws. So that'll be quite nice. I may need to sand to file off or cut off a little bit of the board here to give room for the axis to turn, but apart from that I think it turns out quite well, and I'm sure that it will work fine. Okay, next thing will be to screw in the holders for the ball bearings, making sure that the axis is aligned correctly. Okay, so I'll just do that. Well, I just discovered another little design mistake here. As I have screwed on the holders for the ball bearings, well, I noticed that the axis wasn't really turning very well, and of course it's because that the hole in the go through the board here should be at least as big or bigger than the rotating part of the ball bearing in the center. So I drilled a bigger hole up to I think 16 millimeters or something like that, and now the axis is turning nicely. Now I'll just apply this one to the position where I need it, and then I think I'll actually try to attach the motor with the mount here, which isn't perfect, but I think it will suffice for this time. Okay, and I'll just figure out where to put the nails. 4 centimeters in, and it's 6 centimeters long, so I'll just turn this over. Okay, now I need to modify the disc to be able to hold my lures, and this one will be for the pen seals here. So I'll just add a circle to work with, and I think I'll just do it like this, following the edge at about 1 centimeter. Then apply on the opposite. Doesn't need to be super accurate in between. Like that. Okay, and I'll just apply a hole for each pin like this. So like this. Now I have a hole, and I should be able to more or less use these as a nail. And then I will attach this one to my rotor. Okay, and everything seems to be fixed. I'll just make sure that it rotates finely. Well, like that. Seems to be fine. And hopefully I should be able to push in the lures like that and have them rotating around. The little rotator box for the UV light is now all done, and I really think it turned out quite well. The last thing I want to do is just to test it, and to do that I will coat some of my pencil lures here. The only thing I've prepared is I have some gloves. I've positioned it all in my fume cabinet here, because I'm really not sure that inhaling that stuff is too healthy, so I keep it in my fume cabinet here. Otherwise I'd advise you to use a mask. Apart from that, I have a little bin here which I've taped up with black tape. I will use this to pour in some UV resin, and by adding black tape I'll avoid it getting light from all around here. Also, I have a small bin with some alcohol in it, and I use that for cleaning up the brush afterwards. Then I have an ordinary brush, I have some gloves, and I have the box and everything ready here. So, well, I'll just start up by coating all these lures and loading them up in my rotator here, and then we'll end up by starting the light here. Okay? and I want to keep a fairly thick layer here. So and that's why I need the rotator box even when I'm not curing the lures, because I want a layer that is thick enough to give a nice smooth surface. Also, but while I'm waiting for loading all the lures here, I need to rotate them so it won't drip. This will also ensure that I have a nice complete layer that is evenly distributed over the lure here. Don't know if I'm just about there, I think. So I have to make sure to cover the whole lure, rotating it a bit along the way so it won't all end up in one place. And just putting one of these like that, and it will be rotating there while the other ones are getting coated here. Okay, now all the lures have had a layer of resin and has been turning around, so I'm fairly certain it's quite well distributed. So now I just need to harden the resin, and I'll just grab my little UV box here and turn it on and leave it there for about half an hour, I think. I haven't measured it precisely, but I will check out that the resin is nice and fine. The last thing I have to do is just to clean up a bit, so I'll grab this one and save the rest for later, depending on how long. And the brush I can just clean up with some alcohol. That will clean the resin up here, and I can reuse my brush. Okay, so well, nothing left but to wait a bit and see the result. The lure's got about 45 minutes under the UV light in the rotator. Maybe it was more than needed, but at least now it's completely hardened and nice and hard. The surface isn't completely smooth like when you do it with the epoxy, maybe also because I used the brush a bit after it had been very briefly under the lamp, which probably wasn't a good idea. Well, I'll get more experienced with this along the way. But anyway, it seems nice and hard. I think once I get a hang of it, the surface will be very nice. And for a quick fix, this is really nice. Well, nothing else you can put on which will be as thick as this and still be able to harden in less than an hour. Well, this movie wasn't really about UV coating or anything. It was about building a little rotator, but I'd still like to talk a little bit about the pros and cons with the UV resin. The con, of course, being it's fairly expensive compared to the epoxy I use. I think I could get 2-3 times more epoxy for the same price. Also, this one will need a rotator. Well, the other one does as well. You'll need a UV lamp. Well, that's an extra cost for this. The pro, of course, being it's much faster. While the epoxy, even with one layer, will take about 24 hours. This is less than an hour before you have a nice result. Also, another thing is that with the epoxy there's a lot of things that can go wrong. You can get fish eyes, and you can have all different kinds of problems, bubbles and stuff like that. Well, with this it doesn't seem to be a problem at all. On the other hand, it seems that the surface isn't as nice as with the epoxy. Well, there's a few pros and cons. I'm sure I'll be using this for some things, and I'll still be using the epoxy for other things. I think, well, I hope you like this little movie about my little rotator, and a little hints about the UV resin. And well, nothing left to say, but I hope you see me soon.